Ed Werder worked 26 years at ESPN, recognized by the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's been covering the Cowboys since 1989, and this season he's covering the boys for WFAA TV. Ed Werder, Cowboy Insider, joining us on the program. What was your first impression of Jerry Jones?
My first impression of Jerry Jones was formed in 1989 when I first moved to the Dallas Metroplex to cover the Cowboys for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. He was definitely a huge personality. I didn't have a lot to compare it to at the time. I'd been covering the Denver Broncos, and Pat Bowlen was obviously maintained a different profile. But yeah, it was clear that, Jerry was somebody who could not embrace criticism, but he could withstand it. And that he was going to be a very prominent personality in the league for as long as he owned the franchise.
Why do we have a Cowboy documentary? Like, why now and did you learn anything new? And I know you're interviewed in this, but why now for a Cowboy documentary?
I think it's kind of a legacy, piece for Jerry. He's 82 years old. They've been irrelevant in terms of competing for championships for 30 years. I think Jerry wanted, something that sort of documented his place in the NFL and how it all began and what he accomplished during his career. And he wanted to take credit for certain things for which he has not yet been given credit. And I mean, there's always the soap opera. I mean, there's always drama around the team. I mean, Dan, most coaches, most general managers, the first thing that they want to do other than have a healthy football team is eliminate distractions. And Jerry's different in that he has said as recently as this training camp, when it gets quiet, I like to stir it up. And so for all of those reasons, the Cowboys are very good theater. And he had an offer of, $50 million to cooperate and do this piece.
If fans in Dallas could vote whether they wanted Jerry to continue as the owner, how would that go?
I think Jerry would win the 3 votes of his family members who were involved in the organization and might lose all of the remaining votes. I think the media would like to keep Jerry around. He's obviously good for what we do, always has been good for our business. But yeah, I mean, I thought that was one of the interesting things about this documentary and the timing. And one of the things that struck me while watching it was when Jerry came here in 1989, he was vilified. He was hated, very, strong dislike for him for, firing Tom Landry, franchise icon, even though he had been losing, and many people, including his bosses within the organization, Tex Schramm, thought the end had come or was near for Tom Landry. Jerry's the one who actually did it. And and here we are 35 years later, and a lot of that animosity still remains toward Jerry. And I didn't know if Cowboys fans, if football fans in general, would watch this documentary just out of curiosity or to have a sense of nostalgia, or they would refuse to do so in protest over the way Jerry runs his business.
Any chance that Micah Parsons' agent is the issue here in these negotiations?
Look, I think that, first of all, it's not uncommon for the Cowboys to be this close to their opener and have a very prominent player unsigned. It happened last year with CeeDee Lamb. It happened with Ezekiel Elliott, who signed the week of Jason Garrett's first game of his final season. Dak Prescott was about to get on the bus to go to the stadium. If Jerry would have waited any longer to sign Dak Prescott, he would have had to have Mike McCarthy call a timeout in the first quarter. But I think I don't know that David Mulugheta is to blame specifically for this. He's had clients certainly, who have forced the issue to get the terms that they think are fair to them. And I mean, Jalen Ramsey claimed a back injury, missed 3 game checks, and ultimately got traded, which was his desire. Micah Parsons might want to follow that routine to a point. I don't think Micah Parsons wants to be traded. And I think ultimately, Dan, like both sides are complicit in where they are today. Micah Parsons was, naive to engage Jerry Jones in contract negotiations without Mulugheta, his representation, being present. And Jerry was wrong after 35 years of being a general manager to think that he could reach a binding agreement with a superstar player while his agent was not involved.
We're talking to Ed Werder. He's been covering the Cowboys since 1989, working for WFAA TV in Dallas. Let's talk about the team on the field, though, because it feels like we talk about everything else on the periphery with the Cowboys. Comes down to how threatening is this team? If everybody's on the field, how good are the Cowboys?
Generally speaking, when Dak Prescott has been healthy and played most or all of the season as a starting quarterback, the Cowboys have been in the playoffs. I think this is the first time in Dak's 10-year career as a Cowboys starting quarterback that they go into the season as probably the third best team in their own division. I mean, Philadelphia and Washington played in the NFC Championship game last year. The Cowboys went 1-3 against those two teams, although they didn't have Dak Prescott. I mean, Prescott's been the most dominant player in the division in the regular season. He's 33-8 against division opponents. But the division is certainly stronger now than it was early in his career. And so division championships are harder to win than when the defending Super Bowl champion is in your division and you're opening against them in less than 2 weeks. And they have a first-time, head coach in Brian Schottenheimer, who, Dan, he has two jobs this year that he didn't have a year ago. One, he's a head coach. He wasn't the head coach last year. He was the offensive coordinator, but he wasn't the play caller. Now he's the play caller and the head coach. So he's got a lot to deal with that he hasn't had to do in his previous career.
And also more pressure on the Cowboys after what the Commanders have done, and they've got their quarterback. It's a young team there. Man, if they get Terry McLaurin in there, we think they're going to be formidable. The Giants, it feels like it's maybe wait till next year. Dak and his age and what he gets paid, and that surprised me. I've been very vocal that I like Dak as a person. He's been very good to the show. I just wouldn't sign him up for that kind of money. I didn't understand that. Bringing back Zeke Elliott. There's certain things that Jerry has done really well, or his team has done really well. But the Dak part of it, 32 coming off an injury, and you're paying him $60 million?
It's amazing that a year later he still has, by $5 million, the highest average salary in the NFL among players at any position. That just speaks, I think, not only to his value to the Cowboys and Jerry's fear of not having a franchise-type quarterback going into a season without somebody he thinks can win games on a consistent basis. I mean, how fortunate are the Cowboys? Dak Prescott was a fourth-round pick. Tony Romo was an undrafted player. They've had 20 years of high-level quarterbacking without investing a first-round pick. And in the case of Dak and his salary, I mean, it's really just leverage. It's what Micah Parsons is going through now. Dak and his agent mastered that. I mean, they forced the Cowboys to franchise tag him. They'd never franchise tagged a quarterback in their history. They franchise tagged Dak twice. And ultimately, Jerry feared losing him, and so he did what it took.
How did the Eagles not end up back in the Super Bowl?
I think it all comes down to injuries. If Jalen Hurts stays healthy, if their defense with Vic Fangio, which could be the youngest in the NFL this year, holds up, I do expect the Eagles to be the first team to repeat as division champions since Philadelphia did that in 2004 with Andy Reid. This is a division, as you know, interestingly enough, has had a new champion for 20-plus consecutive years. That being said, I still think there's a big difference between Washington and Philadelphia, all things being equal. We saw that in the NFC Championship game when Philadelphia dominated that game and dominated the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. They're a really good team. Their front office takes a completely different approach to being proactive and signing their best players. You would think maybe Jerry Jones would study that and apply that to his franchise. He's chosen to do just the opposite.
What's the craziest story you've ever been involved in or heard about the Cowboys? You can leave out names if you need to.
I think we saw him in the documentary. The Michael Irvin situation, being arrested with drug charges, there being a murder for hire plot involved in the trial. Him ultimately missing 6 games to start a season, and Deion Sanders becoming, Troy Aikman's number one receiver. So it's hard to say that there's just been so much, Dan, over time, and it's all played out very publicly. So I don't know that there's something that we're not aware of that I could share with you, even if I eliminated the names, that would be more curious than all of the things we've seen happen openly.
Yeah, I felt the same way when I watched the documentary, but, I've been around, doing this professionally for 40 years. But somebody who is younger, let's say you're 30 years of age, and your entire lifetime, Dallas hasn't won anything, and then all of a sudden you take a trip down memory lane, and you're like, damn, we used to be good. We used to have stars who wore that star on their helmet.
Well, I think the thing that, comes through when you watch the documentary is what a great coach Jimmy Johnson was, not only in terms of identifying and developing talent and making, the Herschel Walker trade, which was a unique move in the whole history of the league by a relatively novice NFL coach at the time. But he also was a master psychologist, and the players on that team, the principal leaders of that team, unlike those today, they met the challenge in the postseason. They were up for it. We haven't seen that from a Cowboys team in over 30 years, where the Cowboys play their best in the biggest moments against the best opponents.
Always great to talk to you. You always got something to cover, though, with the Cowboys. You imagine if you were covering Jacksonville, Arizona?
I'm very fortunate that I took an offer from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram when I was a young reporter, even though it wasn't really a job I wanted at the time. I wanted to stay in Denver and work at the Denver Post, and had the opportunity to do that. But wound up coming to Fort Worth, covering the Cowboys ever since. And yeah, I've always said I wouldn't have had the career I've had if not for the fact I was so close to covering, I was involved in covering the Cowboys and all the curious situations that happened with them.
I'm glad you are. Good to talk to you. Thanks again.
Thanks, Dan.
Ed Werder, Cowboys Insider for WFAA TV in Dallas.